Welcome. I'm Bernice Ross with today's Real Estate Coach Uncensored. Greg McDaniel's out today, but I have my co-host, is my husband, business partner, and the co-author of our book, Lead Great Virtual Meetings. His name is Byron Van Arsdale. Byron, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
So today we're going to be talking about something that's near and dear to our hearts, is leading great virtual meetings. And the title of today's session is What to Do When Your Zoom Meeting Goes Bonkers. I mean, let's face it, Byron, everybody's spending time on Zooms, whether it's in school, business meetings, personal, due to COVID, it's just a fact of life for all of us right now. So I have a question for our listeners. Have you ever been negotiating an offer on Zoom or trying to do a live stream, perhaps on Facebook or Instagram, and the meeting platform just boots you out of the session? I've had that happen when I was leading. I've had it happen to so many of the people I know who are speakers and leaders and run offices and, who are leaders. It happens all the time. And the bottom line that we're going to be talking about today is that about 20 to 25% of all virtual meetings, I don't care what kind of platform you're using, with the exception maybe of conference calls, but about 20 to 25% of all virtual meetings have technology problems that can actually wreck your meeting entirely. So Byron, based upon what you started observing with the conference call model, that now applies to Zoom and every other type of virtual meeting, regardless of the platform, what were some observations that you made about best practices and some of the insights about what works best that's going to transfer over into our Zoom meetings?
Well, Bernice, what's interesting is the simple observation, especially when it's only a conference call, is when the audio drops out, you have nothing. That's it. It's over. And that carries on to Zoom and every other virtual meeting that you might have, because you have an audio component and you have the visual component. And between the two of those, the audio component will always be the most important thing. Most people would think the visual and how clean it is and the brightness of the image and how good the resolution is. But no, all that stuff can go crazy. But if you don't have the audio, you've lost the meeting. So it's a kind of unusual to look at, but when there was only audio, you really started to realize, well, that's kind of important. That was the bottom line, So in all of our training and throughout the book, we keep saying that audio is the most important piece for you to master and understand and get comfortable with when you're leading or working with groups by phone. That's it. You just have to have the audio really comfortable and wired down for you.
And of course, when we're negotiating, you can't negotiate a deal if they can't hear you. For those of you who lead different kinds of meetings, whether you're an office manager, you're in something like WCR, the quality of your audio is what matters most. And to illustrate this point, several years ago, I led a webinar for NAR, and there were 1,400 participants. Great, very, very big webinar before Zoom. And a thunderstorm knocked out my internet. Well, fortunately, I had a good old-fashioned landline, and I had sent out my handouts ahead of time. It was a real estate training session, and I called back into the webinar using the phone number, and I picked up the meeting like a teleclass. And what NAR told me, they expected everybody to leave when I dropped off. What happened was, because I got back on and we went to the telephone-based approach, it actually, they said almost no one dropped out. So this is one of the reasons that we really want to drive this notion of the audio being so important. And the other thing that is a source of problems here is bandwidth. Lack of bandwidth can destroy your meeting faster than just about anything. We'll talk more about that. But let's go on to number 2. So Byron, you taught me this: always arrive early to have time to troubleshoot tech problems. I tell you, it is the truth. One out of every 4 or 5 meetings, there'll be something where there's a challenge where you've got a garbled audio feed, the platform's acting up, you've had a computer update, the platform like Zoom has updated. All of a sudden, nothing is working the way it's supposed to be. So Byron, what are the guidelines based upon what your experience is? For example, if we're doing a conference call, or if we're doing a Zoom meeting, what are just, how much time do they need? And if nothing's going wrong, you have a kind of really interesting observation about how to use that time most effectively before the meeting.
So one of the most difficult things is for some people is to actually show up early to their call if they're leading it. Yet this is an important component, because if you show up early, then you're more relaxed, you're more prepared. And when things do go crazy, you've all kind of already got everything you need set. What it means is that you actually have to not pick up other tasks or anything else before and really allocate the time. Now, this will be no big deal for some people. For others, this is going to be a major challenge. And I fall into the category of the latter one, which is why I know about it. Because I used to jump up there 2 minutes before, raring to go and all excited. And the problem is that, especially with conference calls, is when there was technology problems that prevented you from getting onto the call. That was one thing. And people still use the conference call. So it's a great model. But if you're actually going to be working on Zoom or something else, how many times have you seen it that the Zoom has decided to update its platform, which they do regularly, and you're ready to jump in the meeting and it says a new version of Zoom needs to be downloaded. It'll only take a minute or two. And you're going, no, I'm so late. So look, this is one of the things that is very smart, is at a minimum 20 to 30 minutes ahead of your Zoom meeting. So what this means is you just have to plan a little bit. And the time beforehand, interestingly enough, is something that allows you to really not answer last minute calls or last minute emails or anything like that, but really kind of walk through, focus on what you're doing. Because in that 20 to 30 minutes, what you're really looking for is just be kind of calm, relaxed, and ready to deal with anything. So if you've got, if you're working on 2 emails and you've got this, and someone else is on the phone, then you're going to be distracted. And that's the thing you don't want to do. So this is just considered really precious time. The other interesting thing that it does for you, is that sense of being relaxed, is in case absolutely nothing happens and everything goes perfectly smooth, you're relaxed, ready to go. So as soon as the first participant gets on, you can actually, what I refer to as, begin your meeting. And what that means is, it used to be common that people would say, oh, we'll just wait a few minutes, not everybody has shown up. And this is just the kiss of death for whether it's conference calls, virtual meetings, Zoom, whatever. It's the kiss of death. If someone is an early arriver, they're ready to go the moment they show up on your meeting. And if you can engage them about any topic you want to, but I would make it specific to what the meeting is, if you can engage them and start that conversation, then when people who sometimes either show up on time or show up a few minutes late, that the meeting already has its sense of motion and you're relaxed, you're engaged people, you've already started. It doesn't mean you're really covering all your content, but you're really understanding who's there and connecting them to the call. Because one of the things that your participants will do is they will show up early. They will think they have time to do 2 or 3 emails. They will think they can get 2 or 3 texts out before the start of the meeting. So instead, what a refreshing approach when the leader is already there, relaxed, and engaging them on what they want to gain from today's session. So this is a way, at least to make your, make your mark as a leader, is have people say, oh, okay, I definitely want to be on Byron's calls because Byron's always early and this is what we do. So I know that the moment I get on that call, we start. And for the people who are late arrivers, they will say, I know exactly what's happening. I don't want to miss anything. And they will make an extra effort to get there.
I know a lot of you do, streaming on the social media. So this is great. Get there early and engage other people so you can build connection. You can expand your database of people you know. And of course, this helps you to grow your business. Now, I do want to give you a couple of tips here. So when Byron described what happens where it says, oh, gee, there's a new version you have to download and you just want to pull your hair out because you just downloaded it 2 hours ago. I've had that happen. Sometimes there are login problems. The first thing to do is reload the meeting software, see if there's an issue. The other thing, I've had this happen. I was doing a call for Greg's Real Estate Uncensored show, and we were using a live stream on Facebook. And it wasn't picking up any of the sound from my side. And I knew my system was supposed to be working, everything out, all the systems were go. And when I switched browsers, problem disappeared. So if you're using something other than Chrome or Firefox, switch to one of those two browsers if you're having problems. They're generally, those work very well. Also, sometimes you just have to, it's just like sign off. You've got a Zoom problem, sign off and sign on again. But again, if you're negotiating a deal or, you're doing something, you're doing a listing appointment, you want to make sure you get there before your sellers do or before your clients do, so that they're not sitting there twiddling their thumbs waiting for you. Not a good way to begin the negotiation.
Bernice, there's another part to this, and that is if you've initiated the Zoom meeting, then you have to welcome people in, which means you have to be there early. Otherwise, if they show up on time and you're late, look, and life happens. I mean, it just does. Crazy stuff happens, thunderstorms happen, bandwidth issues happen, all this stuff happens. So your goal is to actually remain cool, calm, and collected as you go through this craziness, which just allows you, and look, caffeine's not the answer. Look, generally, whether you're having a negotiation, leading a meeting, whatever, caffeine is not really the thing that you want. You'll have enough excitement and adrenaline about the meeting. You just don't want to add more to it. So part of this, when I talk about, look, if we could say anything, as a bullet here to remember, is your virtual meeting starts the moment the first person shows up. And so you have to have it in your mind that, no, this is not just casual. This is one person. They're not there. We're not there yet. We're not ready. You start engaging them. And if you're going to engage them, please do not talk about the weather, talk about innocuous things. Ask them what's going on. Ask them what's one thing, let's say it's a meeting you're leading. Ask them what's one thing they want to get from today that's really important for them. If it's a negotiation, ask them something else about what they're doing, something that connects them and you to the topic of what you're doing, just not something extraneous.
Byron, let's go on to number 3. This will save you so much trouble. Get in the habit of doing it. Don't get lazy about this. Check your audio and video settings before every meeting. Okay, Byron, what have you seen happen that has destroyed your audio or your video? What are some of the things that have happened on your Zoom meetings and on your other virtual meetings?
The best part about this I like is that invariably something happens to reboot, reset, recalibrate, whatever it is you're doing. So look, even for this session, I plugged in my new G. Samson microphone, and I said, I haven't checked it yet. I went back in, guess I was working off the microphone on my laptop, and it was like, oh no, we need to do that. And sometimes if I happen to have bumped one of my settings on my microphone, it doesn't work either.
We have our house cleaned, and one of the cleaners who wasn't a regular cleaner decided to move my microphone. And I led a whole session with Greg where it was coming through the computer audio rather than my microphone, and it sounded horrific. So, something to check.
There's something else here, Bernice, and that is if we think about whenever pilots get onto an airplane, they always go through their checklist. And it doesn't matter whether they flew the plane 3 hours earlier or not. It doesn't matter. They still go through the same checklist. And as boring, as mundane as that is, it's important because, look, you want to be your best when you show up in your meetings. Whatever the meeting is, you want to be your best. So if and you've gone through everything, you've checked everything, and something crazy happens, you can automatically say, no, I've already checked this, I've checked this, I've checked this. And so that at least starts to limit what you're doing. So that's the whole purpose for this. Again, every time before you get on, you might just want to make your own little list. I need to check this, this, and this. And as Bernice just said, look, it's easy to go well into something, have an absolutely fabulous session, and then realize it's all for naught because something was missing.
Byron, every time I lead, I have the same setup, the same lighting, I sit in the same place, it's like, I know it works. And yet, I had one day when I looked at my video feed and I thought, why is it so dark? Well, something had got knocked over on my computer. I don't know if I just slid the toolbar at the top of it somehow and it changed. But always check this because, again, imagine that you're negotiating an offer, you're doing a listing appointment, and you look like you're there in a dark hole instead of, with a bright, clear light on you.
So, Bernice, there's a story I have to tell. This made national news. There was an attorney who had a meeting with the judge that because of COVID, they did everything, of course, via the virtual meeting. And what happened is the attorney somehow couldn't use his computer and borrowed his secretary's computer. What he didn't know was that there was a setting on there that her like 7-year-old daughter had adjusted so her face would show up as a cat when talking, not the voice, just the cat. So this guy dials in having no idea that the judge is looking at this attorney with a cat face over. And of course, the judge is saying, I think we got a little problem here. And you can imagine. So look, the reason we tell this story is because sometimes you have technology craziness. Sometimes you have to shift from what you're doing. And if you don't plan it, you don't give yourself the time, and you don't allow your checklist, crazy stuff is going to happen. And if you're in a negotiation, things like that just make the negotiation a lot harder.
Byron, can you imagine going to a listing appointment and you show up as a cat? Now, if you're a cat lover, that might be just fine.
Yep. If the seller is a cat lover, then it may be, oh my gosh, I love that. You're the only one who'd be crazy enough to do something like that. But I don't believe that is exactly how you want to show up. All right, Bernice, let's go on to number 4. Minimize unnecessary audio interruptions. Look, because audio quality is critical to your meeting success, take the following steps to minimize interruptions from ringing phones, outside conversations, email dings, and other types of notifications. Be sure to ask anyone attending your meeting to take these same steps as well.
So, Byron, so here's a checklist of some of the things to consider. First of all, silence your mobile devices. And if you have a desktop phone, turn off the ringer. Now, if you use beeps or other sounds to notify you of incoming email or social media notifications, as Byron just said, text messages, turn those off on both your computer and your other devices. I have been leading a meeting where I had all those things off on my computer, but my phone was on and the notifications were coming through the Bluetooth over to my computer from my phone. For those of you who are owner brokers, your managers, or you lead other kinds of large meetings, it may be something for your place of worship, for a school, but if you're running the meeting, use the global mute function. The people, they can come on with their video, but mute them. And then if you want to call on someone, use the hand raise feature. Zoom has it, Microsoft Teams has it. Also, those of you who have found your way over to Clubhouse, which is audio only, that's exactly how it works. They have a raise hand feature. That's how they know who to call on over there. So, there's some good training tips. Going over to Clubhouse and listening to what's going on over there is a great way to get your feet wet with the audio only model that we've been talking about. And the advantage of using the hand raise feature, it keeps people from talking, over each other. Now, as a backup, all of our phones have the ability to mute on them. Encourage people to do that. And I want to say this about global mute. Byron, you and I have both been on phone calls where people have wandered into the bathroom and we have the full on experience with them.
So look, your meeting is professional. You want to keep it professional. And sometimes crazy stuff happens and people sometimes just have no idea. I don't know how they don't know their camera is not on. I don't know how they don't know that the audio is on. You want to keep it professional and just make sure that people have their background muted if they are in noisy environments. We're coming back into people flying in. So pretty soon there are going to be people who get onto planes and they're not going to think to mute because they're going to try to hear what you're saying. But you might have to remind people, do me a favor, self-mute, because otherwise the background noise in a plane. And that's one of the things that's so amazing between the technology of our computers, our cell phones, as well as, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, et cetera, is the audio is so good and the video is so good. It just picks up stuff you don't want it picking up.
Byron, I want to say a little bit more about that. we recommend that you use a freestanding directional microphone with noise reduction. This is going to give you the best sound quality. The room I'm in has, has tile floors. I've got a carpet down. I've got all kinds of noise reduction around. But again, if I go onto my computer sound system, I get tons of echoes. It sounds horrible. My directional mic takes care of the problems. In fact, I've had them outside 5 feet from my window, which is about 10 feet from my microphone. And they're out there with a leaf blower right outside my window, or they're cutting the lawn with a lawnmower. And you can't hear it unless it's right on top of the window. The other thing is your earbuds that came with your cell phone or that match your cell phone, the noise reduction on those is excellent. So, and they really cut out all kinds of extraneous sound. You can also use a wired headset. Do not use Bluetooth, because the problem with Bluetooth is that it cuts in and out. And that means that it's also going to pick up more ambient noise. So we recommend, get a plug-in directional mic. Use your earbuds as another way to do this, or a regular wired headset. Those are going to give you the best sound quality. And as we've talked about, sound quality is poor, people leave. Let's go on to number 5. And this is a lesson that's become very apparent from using Zoom regularly. Anytime there's an audio or video feed problem, it is almost always related to bandwidth. And the problem can be caused by not enough bandwidth on your computer. It can be caused by you have too many people who are sharing the same hub on your cable network. It can be caused by too many people in your household have telephones and mobile devices on, and somebody's playing games. You got somebody streaming stuff. You got somebody doing schoolwork, and all of them are sucking up the bandwidth. And that in turn, kills the quality of your video and audio feed. So here are the steps to troubleshoot this. Number 1, we just said this. I'm going to reemphasize this. Close all the other applications out. The only thing that should be open is your meeting platform. Turn off instant messaging apps and text message notifications. If your mobile device is synced with your computer, as we mentioned before, you want to disconnect the Bluetooth connection, because those beeps and notifications will come from your phone, and your computer will sit there and beep at you. Also, one of the things, this was really interesting. I was having bandwidth problems, and I closed out everything. I could have sworn everything was, there wasn't anything else running. And Shane Boland, who's my general manager of my company, she says, go check your usage statistics on your computer. And what the problem was, I had I've got a very, very good backup system, cloud backup, but it was refreshing throughout the day and eating enormous amounts of bandwidth because it kept refreshing throughout the day. And it was just a matter of changing the setting to refresh, between 2 and 3 or 4 in the morning, and not to do it all during the day. So go into your device's usage statistics to see if there's anything that is using too much bandwidth. This is something to do before you start your meetings. And again, if that doesn't work and you're having bandwidth problems, ask say you're leading from home, ask the other people in your household to go down to one device. Turn off, if they're using their computer, turn off their cell phone. If they're on their phone, turn off their computer while you're leading, again, the meeting, because what you want to do, you want to have as much bandwidth coming from your side. Now, a different option is if the problem still persists, you've got everybody on one device and there's still a problem, then ask the people in your household, because I don't know if you can do this in your office, is to turn off the Wi-Fi and go on their cellular connection only. So again, that's one of the ways, and it really does work. But sometimes it's going to come down to, even if you try all those things, the one tried and true way to deal with bandwidth problems is to turn off the video, and you'll still have the audio. And circling back to what we started with, you're back to a conference call.
Technology problems on virtual meetings are just part of the landscape. That's it. Arrive early to troubleshoot any problems. Always double check your audio and video settings. Take any steps to minimize the bandwidth challenges you have, and be prepared to switch to audio only mode if necessary.
So, Byron, to wrap up for today, here's the bottom line. Technology issues they are part of the virtual meeting environment. You can't escape them. You need to have a plan for dealing with them. Allow yourself time to troubleshoot problems, double check your audio and video settings, and deal with bandwidth issues. Be aware of them. It happens all the time. When we were in the midst of recording this, my screen just froze up. Again, it just happens. And you always have to be prepared to go to audio only mode. So, Byron, what's your final takeaway for our viewers today?
The thing that will have the biggest impact on your meetings is if you're cool, calm, and collected. And to do that, show up early, double check everything. Don't engage in distractions, emails, text message, etc. Just stay focused, be calm, be relaxed, and start your meeting early.
And that's the best way to be prepared for technology problems that occur, and they will occur. Thank you for being with us today. And Byron, thank you for guest hosting and sharing your insights. See you next time.